Hey y'all, it's Shane the Creative and welcome to my video. As you can probably tell from the title and or thumbnail, we're going to be talking about Glee. So lately, lots of Glee chatter has been happening online, specifically on Twitter, partly because the official Glee page on Spotify released new playlist of our favorite Glee covers. And as a self-proclaimed Gleek since season 2, back in 2010, I've been loving all of the attention the show has been getting. So I want to throw in my opinion and thoughts on the show. I plan on talking about some of my favorite and well done aspects of the show in my next part 2 video. But in this video, I'm going to be discussing some of the most egregious crimes committed by Ryan Murphy and the writers of this show. Honestly, I could make a whole video just about the crimes of Ryan Murphy in general, cough cough, but we're going to just stick to his sins in regards to Glee. Count your blessings, Mr. Ryan Murphy.
Count your blessings, white girl.
A lot of the sins I'm going to be mentioning are my personal opinion, but I did do some research online to look at some of the most commonly named plots and moments of the show that other fans strongly disliked / took issues with. Also, this video will include discussions on subject matters such as eating disorders, school shootings, predatory relationships, and similar topics, so continue with caution. And one last disclaimer before I jump into this video, I'm going to be discussing and commenting on the characters of the show, not any of the actual actors playing said characters, unless I specify otherwise. Alright, now let's get started. One of the worst things the Glee writers did, for me at least, was not having Tina and Mike being in-game and breaking them up to begin with. Mike and Tina were one of the more healthy ships within the show, and with the little screen time they would get, they were freaking adorable and cute and so loving and supportive of each other. So for the writers to end their relationship just because of the fact that Mike graduated and was leaving McKinley while Tina still had one more year to go was complete blasphemy to me. Like, they could have easily had them being in a long distance relationship and made a whole storyline for Tina out of that alone. And I think what makes it worse, we didn't even get to see the relationship in this ending stages before their official breakup. Like, one moment their relationship is on perfectly good terms, then the very next episode in the new season we get a half-ass explanation as to why they're broken up.
That shit is so disrespectful. So disrespectful.
Like, when I tell you I was so tight when that shit aired, and to make it worse, the writers will then go on to write Tina having this one-sided crush on Blaine, her openly gay friend, mind you, who literally expressed to her that he was very much gay and has had only one moment where he ever questioned his sexuality after he kissed Rachel. Now, I personally enjoy one-sided love storylines because, child, I can relate. But the way they went about it with Tina made her, although maybe realistic, very annoying and irritating. To constantly lash out at him and others for him not realizing nor reciprocating the feelings she had for him.
Why are you acting so pissed off?
Because I get it now. A diva doesn't settle for less than what she wants, and she won't apologize for wanting it. And I can't get that here, so next time, don't come crawling back to me. I'm all out of suit.
And then to have Tina propose to Mike in season 6 and him turn her down, then her and Artie make some pitiful deal to get married if they're still single when they're 30, like...
Okay, I officially accept your invitation to be your backup fiance.
Please stop playing in my face. I'm fully convinced the writers and Ryan had a personal vendetta against Tina or something, because after underutilizing her as a character and breaking up the only good healthy relationship she had, just to make one of the only major storylines being her lusting after her gay friend is so sick to me. Like, they really did Tina so damn dirty, and I'll never forget them for that. Our next sin of the show is the episode Shooting Star, aka the school shooting episode. Now, this one I actually saw many fans online, specifically Reddit, took issue with this episode, and for very justified reasons, if I do say so myself. I remember watching this episode and being extremely invested, as it was very intense and damn near everyone's acting in this episode was top notch. And I remember afterwards waiting to see how the next episode will follow up with what would happen next. Whether it was seeing the students coping or struggling to cope, if anyone will find out it was Becky, etc., etc. So imagine my disappointment when after that they seemingly moved on from the incident entirely, which was a lot of fellow fans' issues with this episode, that it was done solely for shock value. Now, as someone who writes stories and scripts of my own, I can understand wanting to touch on the topic of school shootings, especially during this time as the issue grew more and more prevalent in our real lives, well, in America at least. But to have it be barely ever mentioned again and not really showing any long-term effect on any of the students just confirms the fans' critiques. Like, the only thing that happened in this episode that actually mattered and would amount to something in the later episodes is the reveal that someone from the Glee Club was catfishing Ryder and Sue being fired temporarily. Then the fact that this episode was aired a few weeks after the horrific Sandy Hook school shooting made it even more worse. Many fans deem this episode as one of the worst things the show has done, as it being extremely insensitive, pointless, and just poorly done overall. Now, another storyline that I personally feel like the writers of the show dropped the ball with was how they tackled Marley's eating disorder. In season 4, after Marley secures the role as Sandy in the school's production of Grease over Kitty, Kitty fake befriends Marley and basically manipulates her into believing that she was getting fat and helps Marley to become bulimic. We already see earlier this season how Marley has to deal with people making fun of her mother, who's one of the new lunch ladies at McKinley, because of her mother being overweight.
Is that all I get, Jumbo? Why so stingy?
They must let you eat all those leftovers, huh?
Quit it. That's my mom.
So it completely would make sense why Marley would be more susceptible to forming an ED, as to her already being more conscious of her body image as she sees the mistreatment her mother experienced. Even in the very next episode, we get moments where Marley admits to being self-conscious wearing the bodysuit costume. Remember that for later, by the way. And shares with Kitty how she has been making herself binge every day that week, which Kitty encourages. The episode after that is discovered that Marley has been taking laxatives, and by the end of this episode, during the New Directions performance at sectionals, Marley passes out on stage, seemingly from stress and starving herself. Now, unlike the school shooting episode, we actually get to see the plot of Marley's ED progressing throughout multiple episodes, not just being left off to one episode and never being mentioned again. But this is where we get into where I take issue with how they handle dealing with her ED. In the next episode, Swan Song, it picks right up after Marley's fainting. The club has carried Marley off the stage in the middle of the performance. Due to that, the New Directions are disqualified from sectionals, which Artie and Tina directly blame Marley for.
To say what everyone is thinking, this is Marley's fault. Knew Rachel my butt. I knew Rachel Berry. I was friends with Rachel Berry, and you, Marley, are no Rachel Berry.
Preach. Guys.
As if she couldn't have been seriously harmed or injured from purging and starving herself, or even from just the fall itself. And what's worse is that they aren't reprimanded for it, and the rest of the Glee Club seemingly agrees that Marley is to blame, despite Kitty literally egging her on to keep purging this whole time. That's the worst part. No one says anything to combat everyone else putting the blame on Marley as to why they're disqualified, as if it's okay, as if she should be taking the blame. Then, a few episodes later, in the episode Diva, we see Marley performing to the song Diva in nothing but this pretty purple bodysuit and a cropped fur jacket. Now, mind you, this outfit is more revealing than the superhero costume that she mentioned feeling self-conscious wearing a few episodes earlier. And no, we haven't seen any progress when it comes to Marley dealing with her eating disorder and body image issues, up from her fainting on stage to this performance, seemingly forgetting that storyline at this point. I just truly wish they would have taken this opportunity to give this storyline the grace and care it deserved and fully develop it, instead of letting it fizzle out with no real resolution, seemingly ditching the plot after using it to progress other plot lines. Now, onto a lighter note. One part of the show that's just completely unrealistic and wrong on so many levels It's the Trouble Tones losing first place at sectionals to the New Direction.
In second place, we have the Trouble Tones. In first place, in New Directions.
Like, I am so sorry, but our girlies ate that shit up with their mashup performance of Survivor and I Will Survive. See, no wonder they only showed us that one performance of theirs at sectional, because had they had given us a second performance, there would have been no way to even paint the New Directions winning. Like, no lie. Like, hell, the New Directions barely won against the Trouble Tones with their 3 performances versus the Trouble Tones' 1 performance. Imagine if they were really given the second one. Like, call me delusional, but their previous performances speak for themselves. Candyman, the Rumor Has It, and Someone Like You mashup. Then we later would get the iconic What Doesn't Kill You Make You Stronger performance. Like, the evidence is right there. Like, let's ask the audience.
I mean, let me ask the audience.
Ain't no way the Trouble Tones shouldn't have won first place. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Shelby did one good thing while at McKinley. She ate that one thing when creating the iconic Trouble Tones. Now, speaking of Shelby, the next sin the writers of the show would regularly commit is the constant romantic relationships between school staff members and the students. From Shelby and Puck to Sam and Penny, hell, even Finn kissing Emma, the writers seem to shamelessly enjoy having the male students forming these romantic and sexual relationships with adult women who worked at McKinley, and them only doing it with male students feel very intentional, as if it being a younger man with the older woman wouldn't feel as creepy and predatory as a younger female student with the older male staff member. But guess what? It's still just as predatory and creepy as hell. Not to mention highly inappropriate. Even with them being 18 and technically being legal, that doesn't change the fact that these were active staff members, Penny and Shelby, having a romantic relationship with active students of said school that they worked at. And also, legality doesn't equate to morality. There's a clear power dynamic that makes these relationships unethical and inappropriate. And even in the earlier seasons, they would regularly make comments and jokes about Puck, a minor high school student, having sex and relations with much older women.
Sex with your mother. No, seriously. I cleaned your pool, and then I had sex with her in your bed.
Grown women, as if that's just normal and okay and not trifling as hell. They relied heavily on the student-teacher relationship trope and didn't handle them in a tasteful manner, more so normalizing and glorifying these relationships rather than showcasing that these relationships were wrong. Like, these instances always made me uncomfortable, and I hated having to sit through these scenes where these couples would interact and be intimate. And that was me back in my teenage years, back in my middle school years, where it's like, this feels uncomfy, not even realizing to the extent of how trifling and predatory that these relationships actually were. Now, there's a few more issues with the things that have been done within the show that I would love to include, such as the way they tackled bisexuality within the show, reoccurring characters that seemingly faded into oblivion, Sam and Mercedes not being in-game. But for the sake of trying to keep this video from being too long, I'm going to put those on the back burner for now, and more than likely just touch on them in another video. But I am going to end this video with this last one. I hated how they got rid of the second generation of Glee Club members right before the final season of the show and wrote them off after the Glee Club got disbanded. Now, I will say I do understand how there's outside factors that play a part in this decision of which direction the show will go in. Ryan Murphy himself stated how the passing of Corey Monteith, who played Finn, may he rest in peace, changed the original plan of Finn basically taking over Will's role of running the Glee Club. And I believe that Melissa Benoist, who played Marley, was going to be filming for Supergirl at the time too. But I truly believe that there could have been a way to still incorporate the other characters like Unique, Jake, Ryder, and Sugar, instead of just getting rid of their characters right after they transition from being reoccurring characters to becoming series regulars. Just like how they had Kitty return in season 6. Why couldn't they have done that with the rest of them and had them recruit new members like the new batch that came in? It just sucked because I don't know about other fans, but at this point I had just started becoming invested into the second set of Glee Club members. So to then just pull them out and replace them with a whole new group that we're expected to care enough about just from like 11 episodes. And granted, some could argue that we weren't meant to become invested into the new Glee Club, that they were only used solely as a plot device for Rachel as she rebuilt the Glee Club. But if that's the case, they shouldn't have dedicated so much time to these new characters. Like, they could have really given that screen time to the OGs, especially with this being the last season. The one thing they did right in regards to this situation was at least having Kitty return. At this point, I grew to love Kitty, so her returning for season 6 to be a part of the Glee Club was the saving grace. Otherwise, I personally wouldn't have given a damn about the Glee Club in the final season. And it's unfortunate because the new batch of members had some interesting characters who were talented as hell, like the twins, I guess it's Jane, Myron. I would have loved to see more of and actually become invested into them, but it simply wasn't enough time. It just felt like wasted potential, and I felt myself at times wishing to see more of the OGs as they return back to Lima, rather than just seeing the time spent introducing us to the new characters for the last 11 episodes of the final season. Now, if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. Do you agree with any of the points I've made, or were there other aspects of the show that you feel like they dropped the ball that I should have mentioned? Let me know in the comments below. Like I always say in these videos where I'm touching on the topic of some of my favorite TV shows, I love discussing them with fellow fans in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, could you so kindly like this video and consider subscribing? Like I said, I'm going to be making a part 2 of all the things that I did enjoy and love from the show. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe. Until then, I will see y'all in my next video. Have a great one. Peace.